Hey, how are we? Dan Hunt here with Meraki Performance with episode 4 of the Heads or Tails podcast. Guys, super excited to be back here. We are very excited too to actually officially announce that this is going to be a regular thing. So we actually agreed in this collaboration with CatchMark SportsNet that we were going to continue this podcast through December 2024. So if you've been enjoying this, if you have received insight, whatever it may be, if this has been helpful for you individually or as a coach, just know that we're going to stay here. This is continuing to be a piece of what we want to give back to the community and continue to develop what we do with Meraki. And we are very, very, very happy to be collaborating with CatchMark SportsNet. So if you are new to the podcast, guys, Heads or Tails is this awesome collaboration where we're diving into the gap between the individual mindset and how that aligns with the overall team mentality, right? And so I hear all the time, I hear quite often, and going into high schools and college sports teams, you know, it's just a challenge to really lean in and have resources to help cultivate the mindset, the mental thought loops, and the way an individual athlete is thinking, while also aligning them to the actual values and beliefs and attitudes of the entire team, what we're calling the collective mentality. And so in really processing through that, we were like, man, it's two sides of the same coin, right? You need to be able to lean in and develop that individual, and individuals have to be on this pursuit of developing their mentality or their individual mindset. But then you also need to be able to align them with the team. And so that's what Heads or Tails is. We're diving into that piece there, that gap, and beginning to work through some things from our experience, from our research, from what we've done, diving into some programs and helping athletic teams, and just give it to you. Again, we believe in you. We believe greatness is within you, and we want to do whatever we can to help you see that, and then you to take action on that moving forward. The things that we talk about is not going to be mind-blowing. They're not going to be, oh my gosh, this just totally transformed the way that I view everything. But what they're meant to do is give you that insight to look in and then be able to start seeing a pathway and creating a plan and taking action moving forward. I was just having a conversation today actually with a group of students and said, look, intention is great. Right? I'll say that again, like intention is really, really good to have. We need to have intention and focus and in the desire to move something in a direction, but none of it matters if you don't take action. Absolutely none of it matters if you don't take action. So if you're listening to this and there's things that come to mind and you're like, yeah, that's good. I just challenge you right now to write it down, but also begin to think through, how am I going to take action on that? What action am I going to take? All right. And so, again, my name's Dan Hunt, and I've been in this space, the mental space, really in athletic performance for the last 7-8 years. As a former college coach, ended up diving into this space as a consultant and have just really enjoyed leaning into this and realizing that there is a huge gap between us understanding as coaches and even athletes of what it looks like to develop performance-enhancing thoughts and a performance-enhancing mindset compared to what we typically default in is to this performance-diminishing. And here's what I mean by that, and this is going to be a really part of the topic as we dive in today, is the performance-diminishing mindset really looks like this. Is I see it when coaches say, hey, man, like, don't miss going up to bat. Like, don't miss, right? Or whatever you do, don't do this, right? Or we say and we focus on the things that we don't want to see. And don't get me wrong, I'll be the first one to tell you, we need to be critical. We need to find the areas and the things that we can get better at every single day. But understand that when that continues to be, if we're tilted over there, and that's 95% of our focus, especially when we're in that performance state, when we're in that competition, the highly stressful competition, understand that most of the time, and I would say probably all of the time, that focus continuously is not performance enhancing. If I am constantly focusing on the things that I don't want to take place, my mind continues to focus on the things that I don't want to take place, right? And this is the example that I use quite often is if I tell you right now, don't think of a pink elephant, what just came to mind was a pink elephant. If I tell you, hey, don't think of that yellow school bus, what just came to mind is that yellow school bus. When I'm a coach and say, hey, don't get nervous before a game, you've been here before. Guess what I'm thinking about? The nervousness. If I'm thinking, hey, whatever you do, don't let this guy do this. Guess what I'm thinking about? This guy doing this. And your mind does not recognize the not or the don't or the avoid. What it focuses on is that object, that thing, right? And it's a survival thing that's allowed us to survive to this point. Understand on an athletic field that's not beneficial to us, especially when we're competing. Now, if we're in a practice setting, if we're in that space, yeah, lean into that, right? We want to avoid this. Now, what are we going to do about it? We've talked about that in previous podcasts. Here's this, we don't want that, so what are we going to do about it? But when we're in that highly stressful, competitive space, that's not where you want to focus. You don't want to focus your energy on maybe what you want to avoid or what you don't want to happen, but instead you want to bring that focus, recognize that, but then bring your focus to what you want to take place, okay? And that's the performance enhancing focus, or what I would say a mindset, is to be able to shift your mind and be able to create a set of, you could say, attitudes, beliefs, perspectives that bring you to focus on the things that develop you and the things that enhance your performance. Again, I'm somebody that I don't believe in the positive, negative things. Like, I try to avoid that. At the end of the day, it's what's producing your best and what is diminishing your performance. That's really the focus that I try to stay on, because I've seen people that can focus what the outside would say negative, in the initial can get themselves moving in a direction and then be able to leverage the momentum to keep moving forward. I've also seen people that have been able to stay focused even despite very challenging, a big opposition or an intense competitions. I've seen them be able to focus on solely positive things and continue their momentum moving forward, okay? So what I've really been able to wrestle with and land on is that it's not whether it's positive or negative. And I'm going to say that again, because we get so hung up on this initial, like, if I'm going to coach the mind, if I'm going to help my athletes have the right mindset, it's just always got to be positive. I'll be the first one to tell you, and anybody that's coached at a high level, and some people that have even played at, like, things are not always great. And when you think of life, like, things aren't always great. There's times where you just need to be realistic and say, yeah, that scoreboard, as much as I don't want to focus on it, like, that sucks. I don't like that, right? As much as I don't like what's taking place, like, I can see that, but I can't just go to this optimistic, like, it's all going to be great, because it might not feel that way in the moment, all right? And again, I don't want to say feelings drive everything, but to recognize that so we're not wrestling with that. Does that make sense? To recognize so we don't wrestle with it, okay? And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to go from a reverse place of, I don't like what's going on. I'm in a tense, I might be in this state of maybe anxiety, fear, some performance anxiety, nervous about the outcome, wondering the fear of failure, or wondering what other people are going to say about different things. You might be in this reverse space, and to go directly to drive doesn't work. Anybody that drives, if you were in reverse and directly went into drive, boom, you're still going in reverse, 20 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour in reverse, and you drive that shifter into drive and then hit the gas. Is that going to blow your transmission or not? All right, it's not good for you. And it's the same way with the way that we think. If we are in reverse, it's very, very difficult to go from a reverse place of not in a good mindset, not in a good, like, my body's tense, to shifting immediately into drive, okay? And so that's a big piece I want you to take away from here, is to begin to recognize, when are you in reverse? What things pop up for you? What things are you experiencing when you're in reverse, okay? And be able to say, when am I in drive? And when am I thinking the most? To go back to the state of flow or performance, when we are in that state of flow, or when we are in the zone, we're probably not thinking a lot. right? When you think of your best performance, whether you're a coach now, back in high school, or maybe even when you're coaching really well, or if you're an athlete, when was your best performance? Was it when you were thinking 150 miles an hour and you're thinking, oh, what about this? What about that? What about the scoreboard and the ref? And what are these people going to say? And what if they do this? And what if we lose? And what was that when you were performing your best? Or were you performing your best when you were just fully immersed in what you were doing and you were locked in, right? Typically, when you're in reverse, you're thinking a ton. And typically, when you're in that driver's seat and you're fully immersed in what you're doing and you have that clear goal and you're getting that immediate feedback within the zone and the challenge is just manageable, that's when we're just in it and we're probably not thinking, okay? And so what I want to dive into a little bit more today, that came some foundational pieces. What I really want to dive in today is talking about a mindset. Talking about, we hear the word all the time, right? Like develop, you got to have the right mindset. You got to do this, you got to do that. And sometimes we say, hey, you got to think positive, or you got to go on YouTube and you got to find something to watch that helps you, right? That gives you the right mindset. The reality of all of that is that's a piece. That's good, you know? But when I'm thinking of mindset, when I talk to teams or athletes about mindset, I'm really talking about what is the framework or what are the collective sets of beliefs and attitudes, right? So what are the series? And when you think of framework, I want you to picture scaffolding, right? If I'm building a building, right, I want to build a foundation of scaffolding in a structure, a framework working up, okay? Another way to think of a mindset, and this is a very easy analogy, but it's like a pair of glasses. It's the way that you view things. And I can shift my mindset just like I can take off a pair of glasses and put them on and put on a different pair, all right? And when I think of, or when I say mindset, or when you think about mindset, I want you to look and think about three different spaces here. The first is your view, again, the way you look at yourself. It's how you perceive yourself. It's the attitude you have towards yourself. It's the belief you have in yourself, okay? The second is others, right? Teammates, coaches. What's your view of them? Maybe it's the ref. Maybe it's the fans. Maybe it's your parents. Maybe it's your peers, okay? Maybe it's the school or organization you represent, right? What is your view of them? Because that informs the mindset, okay? And then the final thing is your experiences. How do you view your experiences? When you experience something, what is your attitudes towards it? What is your belief towards it? Okay? And I'm going to break down these a little bit. And then, I want to break them down. So first, when you think of yourself, the critical thing here is you want to begin to know yourself. One, have that self-awareness of, going back a couple minutes ago, we talked about what gets you moving where you're in that state of 150 miles an hour, I'm thinking, and what gets you into just that flow state, right? Be able to have that self-awareness. A big piece that I talk about immediately when I work with an athlete is, what do you value? What do you value? What is very, very, very important to you? What do you consider like non-negotiables when it comes to who you are and what you desire in life? And if you're somebody that doesn't believe that shows up in athletics, you are crazy. That 100% shows up in athletics. That kid that believes in being somebody that's loyal, that has integrity, that believes in hard work, that believes in commitment, that believes in whatever it may be, discipline, like that shows up every single day in what they do. And the problem that I'm seeing more and more in athletics, and people will disagree with me, but I see this all the time, is that kids don't know how to develop an identity outside of athletics. The only value that they find is in outcomes and based on their athletic performance. And I think that's one of the biggest things and opportunities we have in athletics is to say, look, who are you? Who are you? What do you value, right? And how does that show up in athletics? How does that show up in the classroom? How does that show up in your families? How does that show up in community? When you're thinking of you have the desire to be recruited and play at the next level, great. How does that show up when you're being recruited? Because there's hundreds of thousands of people and guys and girls now that have stats that are pretty similar to yours, right? We have those people that are crazy outlying all-stars, right? But for the most part, like the pool is pretty in the middle there, right? And you need to be able to know who you are and be able to live that out and be authentic to yourself and let that be the distance creator. Too often we think, man, if I just run a little bit faster, if I just do this, if I, whatever it may be, get this little bit of an edge. The thing is that who you are is going to inform all of those things. You want to create distance. You want to create distance between you and a competitor. I don't care if this is in athletics or life, right? Know who you are, take crazy amounts of action based on who you are, and watch the distance be created. Watch you get to a point where you don't even care about your competitor. You care about how you're developing and becoming the best version of yourself, and you continue to create distance. That's the key. That's the key. And all too often we go back to, yeah, but as an athlete, this is who I am. And I'm trying to say, yes, as a person, this is who you are, and that person informs everything you do in athletics and in other spaces of your life. And that's how you continue to develop and grow. You will hit a ceiling in your athletic performance if you only view yourself as an athlete. You will hit a ceiling. But if you are able to shift that and say, based on who I am and what I value and the things that make me tick, how do I leverage that in the athletic space? If you look at that, you will begin to break through some of those perceived walls and those limiting beliefs and continue to develop to a better version of yourself, all right? And so knowing yourself is so critical. And the other piece of that is belief. I don't know how many times I've had conversations with parents. I'm paying thousands of dollars here, and they're going to this place, and they're going to that place, and I got this hitting coach, and I got that, and this guy's doing the shooting, and I got this weight training. I'm doing all these things. I mean, we're spending so much money on this, right? But then their kid still doesn't have self-belief. The athlete still doesn't have the confidence, right? And this is no shot at any other coach in space. I think that to develop a whole athlete, you need to develop the whole athlete, the body, the mind, and we even talked in an earlier episode, the soul. Like, you need to develop each of those, okay? But the thing is that if we don't specifically focus on some mental training and training yourself and being able to be in the situations and not getting the outcome you desire, but still staying rooted in who you are and believing in who you are and how that shows up, like, that's such a critical piece, and that's a piece that's missing. I see athletes all the time, like, I'm phenomenal in this space. I got so much belief, and then as soon as they go to the bigger pond, it's like, I don't know. And they lose it all, right? We need to be able to develop that. And I would say the times that you have developed confidence as a coach, as a parent, as a teacher, as a business owner, as an athlete, if you're listening to this, the times you've probably developed your confidence more and more, and it's became strong, is when you faced adversity, you faced a challenge, you faced something that was very, very difficult, and you said, maybe you didn't say, but you just continued to take one more step. You leaned into it, right? You said, maybe consciously or subconsciously, like, I'm this person, this is what I'm going to do. Despite what's going on, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to move forward. And you were able to gain confidence in yourself. That's where self-belief comes from. And a much debated topic in sports psychology is like, what has come first, skill or competency? All right, belief or competency. What's come first, belief or competency? And when I ask this question, I ask athletes, I say, remember the time when you were a middle school kid. Remember the time when you were maybe in that youth basketball league and you saw those varsity players. And you saw, maybe you were in that middle school league and you saw varsity basketball players or football players or whatever it may be. And you thought to yourself, like, yeah, one day, like, I'm going to be there. I believe I'm going to be there, right? You had self-belief. And I always follow it up and say, but did you have the skill at the time? Did you have the competency? Did you have the ability to actually go and play at the varsity level? And the answer is always no. And so the reality is that self-belief, that belief is what sparks and moves you through the challenging times to develop the competency, skill, and confidence. And so you need to have self-belief. And when you're in the space, I'm going to wrap this back around, because when you're in the space and you're in that challenge and you're fighting for the development or the outcome, and you're doing those things, which is great, but you don't receive it, right? If you're focusing only on that outcome and your identity is only on that outcome, you begin to tell yourself, like, I'm just not good. Just can't do it. Nope, I'm not a basketball player. Nope, can't play football. Nope, no volleyball, like that, not my thing. I'm just not good at it. But if you have the self-belief and the knowledge of yourself, and you say, look, I might not have that skill. I might not be the best, but I know that I'm getting better. I trust that because I'm showing up every single day and doing these things, I'm getting better and better and better. Like, that's where the focus has to be. It's the belief that I'm continuing to make progress. Ooh, when you think of fulfillment, it's the progress. I'm continuing to make progress and becoming more and more like confident in myself and developing myself and strengthening my mindset. And even though, again, I'm not getting the result that I want, it's not shifting me off my path in the direction I'm going, but I'm continuing to move forward. That's where confidence comes from, right? And so the beginning piece of this mindset is you have to anchor in and begin to understand, who are you? And for a lot of athletes, I get it, we're in high school, right? In college, we're trying to figure out who we are. It's okay if you don't. It's okay if you don't know exactly who you are. It's okay if you don't say, look, it's these things, right? Those things are going to change over time, but it's beginning to have a foundation of it. It's beginning to come back and evaluate yourself every single day. Some of the reasons why I think athletes drift a lot is that we don't have we don't evaluate ourselves when we come back and say, hey, how was this practice? Where did I move the stick, for lack of a better words? How did I progress and get better? And sometimes you didn't progress and get better with a specific skill or a drill or a strategy. Like, you might not have, but were you able to continue to be disciplined? Were you able to withstand that stressful situation or that challenge and stay true to who you are and continue to work hard? Were you able to continue to have a great attitude and give 100% effort? Because that is what is going to continue to drive your performance. That is what's going to continue to drive your development. But when we go and, again, we make it so much about results, and our mindset is that I'm just not there yet. And our only identity and piece of worth is that I'm not there yet, right? We end up giving up. We don't believe in ourselves. And that's what ends up becoming the internal narrative in the conversation that we play in our mind, all right? And so that's the first piece of this mindset, all right? We have to figure out, begin to evaluate, who are you? Who am I? If I'm an athlete, what do I deeply desire? What is very valuable to me and non-negotiables for me, right? How do I show up every single day? What is the thing that sets me aside? Another way to look at it is character. People are constantly talking about character. That's another way to look at it. Character. What is my character, and how does that show up? How do I bring that out every single day? Despite the environment, I'm consistent in this space. And as coaches, this is a huge opportunity to lean into and help invest in these athletes and these kids and help them move along and have these conversations. Be able to say, what are the things? Ask the questions. What are the things that are important to you? What does matter, right? And again, I think that outcomes and having desires and goals are great. You want those. We want to have the means goals and the things that we can check off and say, we're making progress. We're moving in that direction. Things are going good, or things aren't going good, and we need to adjust. But more than anything, we need to be able to evaluate, how are we becoming the best version of myself? How am I focused on things that are enhancing my performance? And I think as coaches, we have such a great opportunity to lean into that. We have such a great opportunity to actually help create an environment in a space where kids can do that, because that's what athletics do. It does. That's what team sports are able to do. It's the catalyst for kids to really, I call it the pressure cooker, right? We can take 10 years a decade out of athletics, and you learn the same lessons within 3 years within athletics, within a team sport. It's boom. And you get to learn these things because it's so quick and you get so much feedback. It becomes more and more immediate, all right? And as coaches and athletic leaders, we get that opportunity. And so I want you to think about that today, okay? I want you to think about beginning to develop that performance-enhancing mindset, knowing yourself in the stressful times, focusing back on who are you and how does that show up, and beginning to have that self-belief. Self-belief is not always a feeling, guys. Like, I'm going to say that again. Self-belief is not always a feeling. More times than not, and I would say when you are strengthening that self-belief and developing the strength in your confidence, resolve, when you're developing that the most is when you feel it the least. When you feel like you want to give up. When you feel like you just don't have anything more in the tank. When you feel like, I just don't know if I'm ever going to get that result. When you feel that way and you say, no, but this is who I am and I'm making decisions based on that. This is what I ultimately desire, and I'm taking one more step towards that. When you do that, and you do that consistently, you do that with discipline, that's what creates distance. And I say all the time, discipline creates distance. And that's literally where it came from. And that's not just something that applies in athletics. That's a mindset and a focus that you can have for life that will help you in life, right? And so that's where we're going to kind of wrap up today as we talk. We're going to dive into mindset. And like I said before, we're going to continue this. So we're going to build into the next two pieces of this mindset and continue to develop the foundational piece. There's so much more you can do, so much more that you can build on with this mindset. But this is literally the foundation as it relates to building that mindset of developing a strong self-belief, right? The view of ourselves. We're going to dive into how do we view others in teammates and coaches and different, right? And then diving into actually how do these experiences, what do we tell ourselves about these experiences? Because at the end of the day, our imaginations are powerful, are very powerful. And if we rely specifically on willpower and only willpower of I just can't do, eventually your imagination is going to take over. It's so much stronger than our willpower. But if we can give ourselves that pair of glasses, if we can give ourselves that set of attitudes and beliefs, that framework, that scaffolding that we can lean on in challenging times, ain't it good? Then it's more likely that we can stay in a state that's enhancing our performance instead of diminishing. All right? And so as I wrap up today, if you found this beneficial, please, guys, share this with people. This is what we desire to give this to you. We desire to lean into this gap. We desire to give you things and help you take action towards being the best version of yourself. And one, recognizing the greatness within, but then two, taking action and bringing it out. It's within you, all right? The second thing that we are really excited about is the end of this month, all right? At the end of this month, on Saturday, March 30th, at the Annie Blair Sports Complex in Norton Shores, Michigan, Meraki Performance and Momentum Athletic Performance is collaborating to host an event called The Ascent. And when you think of the ascent, the journey, the athletic journey, right? It's not always pretty. There's lots of challenges and bumps and bruises. And I know a lot of athletes have great aspirations, not only to play at the next level, but just to continue to get the best out of their experience at the high school level and potentially at the college level. And so what we decided to do is we got three college standouts, Division I, Division II, and NAIA, that, one was a D1 standout in baseball, walked on to a team, ended up earning himself a scholarship, was a team captain, named MVP, and an all-region player, Division I baseball player, all right? We also have a Division II three-time All-American who was a part of just a dynasty football team and really had to earn his way, and I don't want to give his story away, but had to earn his way starting or coming in behind a two-time All-American, right? Very difficult challenge. And then another individual that has won 2 national championships at the NAIA level that, again, had his own challenges in high school, but stayed disciplined and just continued to get the most out of his athletic career and ended up winning 2 national titles. And so we are bringing these guys in to talk to you. We're bringing these guys in so you can hear from them, their experiences, and so you can see that you're no different than them. Not only have you probably experienced similar to what they have, but also they're going to talk about how they navigated that. And guys, the blueprint is not magic, right? And they're going to talk about that. They're going to talk about what things they did and how they focus on it. And again, their stories are fascinating and so much wisdom and value you can get from that. They're going to share those things. There's also going to be an opportunity afterwards just to network with them and connect with them and ask questions, all right? And again, that's going to be Saturday, March 30th, The Ascent. If you are interested, you're going to be around. We intentionally put this just before spring break for individuals that are going to be around for spring break. Go ahead and go to MerakiPerform.com. under the events tab, you can go ahead and register there. All right. Tickets, like they're selling, right? We're trying to, again, provide this for you as a way of getting into a room and seeing like, look, I'm no different than them. And I can tell you in my space and what I do, one of the greatest investments I did for myself is I went and got into rooms with other people that are doing similar and said, man, there's not a lot of difference between you and I, right? There's differences, but there's not a lot, man. Like I'm just as good as you. I can do this, right? And I desire that for you guys here to be able to get into that room with these athletes and go, man, they did this. Oh, I can do these things too. All right. And so again, Saturday, March 30th, the Ascent, you guys aren't going to want to miss that. All right. Finally, if you've liked this has been beneficial, please share it with somebody. Get it out there. Pass it along. Let us know what's connecting with you. Let us know if there's a topic you want us to talk about. All right. And if there's anything we can do for you, please reach out to us. We're going to continue to build this. We're going to continue to give to you. And we're going to continue to do everything we can to first get you to recognize there's greatness within you, and then two, take action on it. All right. So we're grateful for you all. Thank you so much. We look forward to next month. We're going to keep building this out on the mindset. All right. Thanks for joining us.